I keep hearing all these folks talking about how the rhetoric needs to be calmed down by the right after Charlie Kirk was taken from us. You know what? No, it doesn't. Matter of fact, most of us need to pump it up. We need to pump up the volume, as the old movie slash song was. You wanna know why? Because the lies of the left keep trying to cause us to feel ashamed of the truth. We know what the truth is. The left want to deny the truth. And people like Charlie Kirk were willing to spread the truth, but they did it in a nice way. And there are still, thankfully, folks that are wanting to talk about these things in a nice manner. But here's the thing. There are those of us on the right. Now, I'm not going to cause violence. I am not going to advocate for violence. The whole violence thing just is not my shtick. But I will say this. There are folks that have been playing nice that don't get up on rubes. They do things in a whole different manner. And we've been telling them, hey, y'all don't have to act up yet. These are folks that know what it's like to see a civil war going on in a country. They know what it's like to see violence happening in a country. And they kind of got a little liking of violence. But they've been being nice. You don't hear from them. They're not making YouTube channels. Most of them aren't even really on social media all that often. But I can guarantee you that they don't like what happened and they don't like what's been happening. I mean, it just really is getting ridiculous. So we're going to discuss some of the lies that are coming out, and then we're going to discuss something else. So let's get into it.
Howdy, y'all. This is Paul, the Redneck Thinker. What we have here is a channel to communicate. I want you folks to be thinking by the time you leave my videos. Why? Because I'm tired of people talking via what other people tell them to think. So, watch my video and enjoy the chance to think for yourself.
The first thing that I am going to discuss in all of this stuff is the fact that we keep getting told, hey, you need to tamp down the rhetoric. And Charlie Kirk was always talking this hateful stuff. If you say that Charlie Kirk, or if you believe that Charlie Kirk said anything hateful, you're either brainwashed, stupid, or a liar. Seriously. You're one of those three categories. You're either stupid, brainwashed, or a liar if you believe that Charlie Kirk said anything hateful. I have seen quite a few videos. I have had him up in the background while I have been working on things. Just for the simple fact of that I enjoy listening to discourse between young folks. He was young enough to be my kid. All the people he's talking about are young enough to be my kid. That means that I am wanting to hear what the young folks are talking about. I'm an old fart, so I listen to people like Charlie Kirk. I listen to Amir Odom. I listen to Tim Cast. Tim Pool, I guess is his name. I listen to these folks. Why? Because it's interesting to hear what's going on. And I've never heard Amir Odom say anything that's hateful. I've never heard Charlie Kirk say anything that was hateful. Now, there are a few of the folks that I listen to that have said some things that I'm like, yeah, y'all. And I don't always agree, and I didn't always agree with Charlie Kirk on issues. But you know what? He had a reasoned mind. He thought out what he had to say, and he told the truth about things. None of which was hateful. So that's a lie that he said anything hateful. I want to say it like it is. Now, one of the latest stories that I've heard that I find hilarious is there is a member of Congress that is asking, and I didn't look to see who it was. Why? Because it's a Democrat. All of them are basically the same. AOC is no different from Nancy Pelosi in my eyes. Yes, they may act a little bit different, but they're basically the same person. But they're saying that in response to what happened to Charlie Kirk, we need to rescind the January 6th pardons. No, we don't. What happened after January 6th was a PG, it was an Americanized PG version of what happened after Operation Valkyrie, only even dumber. At least with Operation Valkyrie, there was an actual goal. What happened on January 6th was mostly shock that they welcomed these folks into the Capitol building. Most of these folks were so shocked that they didn't let the Admiral Akbar sitting on their shoulder go, "It's a trap," like they should have. And I would love, and any of the few, and it was very few people that were actually violent, and I would like to see what percentage of them were actually Trump supporters and what percentage of them or what percentage of those were uh, plants by certain groups. But most of the folks were exceedingly not violent. In any group, there's going to be a few that are going to be violent, no matter what. The percentage depends on several factors. But it was low key. It was like, okay, you had Operation Valkyrie, and what in the aftermath, we had the PG version of that. Seriously. So no, we don't need to rescind it. The folks that were actually violent, I'm pretty certain that those folks were already getting in trouble for other things that they were doing. So yeah, they'll pay for it either way. And the treatment that was given to those folks after January 6th, yeah, no, they don't. Their pardons need to stand. Okay, that was two of the things. I really don't want to get into all of the stupidity that I have heard. You know, there's now folks saying, "Oh, we want these folks to come to the campuses because they want to take these people's lives." We already knew that the left was violent. If you pay attention, the guy that James Earl Ray fella that was arrested and jailed for Martin Luther King's death, I can guarantee you, actually, I don't have to even say I can guarantee you, I already know the man was a Democrat. If you take a look at the couple that they're talking about, these Minnesota lawmakers, well, they weren't given this kind of treatment. Well, number one, nobody knew who they were. Yeah, the folks from Minnesota knew who they were. Maybe a few people outside their state. Charlie Kirk was known internationally. The folks in Minnesota, nobody knew who they were. Plus, it was left on left violence, unlike what that idiot liar on CNN wants to claim. It was left on left violence. So the left needs to take care of their own. On top of, like I said, nobody knew who they were. Yes, I felt bad for them. I said it when I made a video on it. I felt bad for them. I felt bad for their family. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to go beyond anything else. Charlie Kirk made a difference internationally. There are folks all over the world that are mourning his death. Nobody knew who those two people in Minnesota were. Now, all these calls for violence, I'm going to say this. You keep that up, and we're going to stop worrying about law enforcement. Right now, the calls for law enforcement is there. We want the government to do its job. But there are folks, like I said at the beginning, that are not on social media that often. They ain't keyboard warriors. They know what's going on in the world, but they have been keeping low key. The folks that, like Charlie Kirk, Amir Odom, people like that, that have been getting the truth out there, they enjoy those folks. But at the same time, they've got little dark things inside of them. They know they've got little dark things inside of them. They know that they can't let that little dark thing out. Well, you keep doing what you're doing by going after people like Charlie Kirk, and those people with the little dark things inside of them are going, yeah, why should we be nice anymore? Now, I ain't a nice person. I will say this much. I'm getting tired of some of the lies I get to see on my page about Charlie Kirk. I got rid of 2 comments. Why? Because they were flat out lies. If you're going to make comments, I have no problems. But if you're going to lie, for the most part, I'm just going to erase it. It's not censorship. I just don't want to deal with lies. I'm not going to start arguments on my page that are based on somebody else lying. End of story. I don't deal with those types of morons in real life. I'm not going to deal with you online. I just am not going to let you engage me, and I'm not going to engage you, and I'm not going to have my page used for that, nor am I going to interact with you. Like I said, I don't like liars, brainwashed either. I don't deal with that kind of thing. Why? Because my sanity. I'm too old to deal with that. I do what I do because, well, I want to get the truth out there. I want to get people talking about the things that need to be talked about that's been going on with our government. Now, on occasion, I do post videos of silly things, but for the most part, I want people to realize what's going on in the government, whether you're left, right, center, Martian, or Venusian. I want you to know what's going on in our country. But just know that I'm also aware that there are people that know what's going on in our country that isn't trying to just talk it out. At the end of the day and at the beginning of the day, here's what the truth is. Y'all need to let the folks alone that are willing to engage people in conversation. Charlie Kirk told the truth. I would say about 98% of the time, and the other 2% was not lies. It was just misinformation or more of a opinion based around something. And none of what he said was hateful. So, no, the right side of the political spectrum does not need to tone down their rhetoric. Matter of fact, we need to ratchet it up. We need to make it bigger. We need to have the conservative voices out there more. We need common sense back in this country. So, no, we don't need to tone down the rhetoric. We need to pump up the volume. God, I probably enjoyed that song a little bit too much. Sorry, folks. But, that being said, I am not threatening you. I am pointing out that the nice folks that are out there that are trying to talk with others, let them talk. I have other things that I want to talk to you about. I'm not going to sit there and talk to folks to try to convince them to be conservative, liberal, libertarian, or whatever. If you are leaving the liberal movement, may I say you don't have to go to the Republican Party. Go to the Libertarian Party first. Take a look at the Libertarian Party. Y'all might like the Libertarian Party. Doesn't mean y'all have to vote Republican. Y'all have choices. But at the same time, if you're going to stick with the left hand side, the left outside of the political spectrum, realize this. We don't care about you anymore. You took out somebody that liked you. There are others that like you, that are willing to engage with you in a nice manner. But it doesn't mean that anybody actually cares. We know what you are. Seriously. Why do you think Charlie Kirk had security to begin with? Why do you think people like Tim Pool had security to begin with? Why do you think it is that Raleigh Gaines has to have security? It's because the left side of the political spectrum is massively violent. I was listening to the news the other day. They were talking about all this hateful rhetoric going and threats made towards judges by what supposedly conservatives, and what they were doing is sending the judges pizza. If the pizza's paid for, eat it. Well, unless it's sardines. If it's sardines, ugh. Y'all some sick puppies if it's sardines. But if it ain't sardines, if it's a good, normal pizza, just eat it. It's, no. Pizza's not a warning. This has been Paul, the Redneck Thinker. Y'all have a good day now. Bye. So, folks, that's the story that I wanted to bring you on this video. And I just wanted to say thank you again for coming by. Hit like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff if you don't mind. Help me out. So, y'all have a good day now. Bye.